Hello, poetry lovers. The video tonight shows the creation of a new part of a long poem called Thalassophobia. Stick around to the end of the video to hear the completed new draft. So I've been working for a few months on this long poem I started brainstorming last summer. It revolves around the idea of thalassophobia, which is the fear of deep water. I wrote an initial section of the poem several months ago, and if you want to see my creation process on that one, I've linked the creation video below. I also have at least 2, probably 3 more sections planned. I knew I wanted to start the poem jumping into a story that illustrates my theme, but after that initial portion, I wanted to step back and build a clear understanding of the analogy that is driving this poem, and I knew that in order to do that, I needed to define thalassophobia in a way that is helpful to drive the poem forward. So that's what I turned toward in this section. But as usual, I knew I needed to embed the definition and the hints at the theme in something relatable that the reader can imagine, so I chose a conversation I had with my husband maybe a year before. We've been talking about someday going on a cruise, and with that conversation was where I learned about thalassophobia as a concept. So in this section, I'm trying to draw the reader into my discovery. I'm not just explaining what the concept means, I'm trying to uncover a definition through a vivid description of concrete elements that might actually inspire fear. Because I was trying to evoke a sense of fear, or at least nervousness, I did a lot of revising as I wrote. I crossed out a lot of word choices and phrases. My goal here was to work toward wording that was both concise and overwhelming, ways to say simple things in few words that would have a cumulative effect of feeling overpowering. One way that I tried to make this happen was by using lots of alliteration and assonance. All the way through, I was focused on using S, F, and W sounds excessively, and punctuating those extended and soft sounds with harsh K and T sounds for contrast. As I did this, though, I had to focus on avoiding repetitive word choice, so you'll see me in places read back through what I've already done and revise some wording so that I can use a certain word in a new line. I did this here with the word deep. Toward the end, I slowed down a lot, and this seems to be typical for me. As I reach the moments of completion in my drafts, I often spend a lot of time considering ideas, drafting lines, reading them, and scratching them out. In general, getting the beginning of an idea written is much easier than wrapping up a poem or stanza effectively, especially since the content at the end of a poem or stanza is often the most memorable part. So I went very slowly for the last several lines. I eventually chose to revisit the wording I used to open this section, since I thought that would help reorient the section around the context. However, I broke the sentence over 2 lines, adding some enjambment in the middle of the sentence to isolate the last few words on their own line and to add a little discomfort as I wrapped up. I like this section on its own, and I'm happy with the progress I've made so far on this poem. I'm also excited to see where I can take it with another 2 or 3 sections. This section was written in about 19 minutes on December 22nd, 2023, but I'm going to share both of the sections I've written so far so you can hear how they go together. Here's the partial first draft of Thalassophobia. But trigger warning, if you actually have thalassophobia, this poem might not be for you. Thalassophobia. 1. It was summer's hottest day. We all, church kids, had gathered at someone's muddy pond. Lake? The water stretched wide enough that shouts on one side were silenced before making shore. Each bank grew thick with reeds. There were a few dry trees. Some of us waded, canoed. Some, just me, stayed ashore, my 2-piece named Too Skimpy by our leader. One boy, Nobody now recalls his name or who invited him. One new boy swam far out. In the deep, lake weed grew thick and gripped his treading feet, clinging and dragging. He went under. And again. Nobody heard his gasping except one of ours, a gorgeous girl, who swam to him. He gripped her, used her head, her shoulders as buoys, pushing her down to raise himself. And again, someone saw their struggle. We ran for help. A man dove to save them as she, half drowned, dunked and held under. After, he and she, stranger and savior, rested inside, slowly drying. She was still shaking. He thanked her for rescue, nearly her end. He praised her. His hand groped her knee, her thigh. When I came inside, he receded, but her eyes were deep and wide. She was still shaking. 2. He says he has it. Fear of deep water. We are contemplating a cruise, and he confesses this terror. Not drowning, ship sinking, just the fear of sea itself, of land drowned thousands down. I think of flying. New York to Frankfurt, seeing far below the bright surface prickled with waves, those unbroken miles. Water where live who knows what lives. Is it fear only of what teems unspeakably there, or fear of the unbroken deep, unfluttered fathoms where light despairs and even the eyeless falter? Fear of distance to surface, of the dark salt blank, the vast, the sunless, the oblivious void. He says he has it. Thanks for watching this episode of Ars Poeticat. If you liked watching poetry happen, please like and subscribe. Then go make some art.